Have you ever noticed how some people seem to carry silence with them like a second skin? Not the comfortable kind of silence, but the kind that feels like a fortress. The kind where small talk feels like climbing a mountain, where parties drain you not just physically but existentially, where you've perfected the art of being present while simultaneously planning your escape. You call yourself an introvert. And maybe you are. But here's something strange. Introversion isn't always about who you are. Sometimes, it's about what happened to you. There's a difference between choosing solitude and needing it as armor. Between preferring quiet and being afraid of noise. Between being selective with your energy and being terrified of being seen. So here's the question. Are you really an introvert, or did someone teach you that the world wasn't safe enough to be anything else? The subtle architecture of withdrawal. You probably don't remember the first time you made yourself small. You were young, maybe 4 or 5, and you were excited about something. A drawing. A story. A discovery you made in the backyard about how ants work together, how they build entire cities underground. You burst into the room where your parents were, and you opened your mouth to share this magnificent thing you'd learned. And then you felt it. That shift in the air. Maybe your mother didn't look up from her phone. Maybe your father sighed. Just barely, but you heard it. Maybe they said, "That's nice, honey," in that tone that means they are not really listening. Or maybe they snapped at you, "Not now, I'm busy. Can't you see I'm dealing with something?" You internalized that moment. Not consciously. But somewhere deep in your developing brain, a connection was made. My enthusiasm is too much. My presence is an interruption. I am too much. The psychology behind this runs deeper than you might imagine. Dr. Alan Score, who studies attachment neurobiology, discovered that children develop their sense of self through what he calls affect synchrony, the way parents mirror and respond to their emotional states. When a child expresses excitement and receives withdrawal, or expresses need and receives irritation, their brain literally rewires itself around one central lesson: it's safer to need nothing. The performance of perfection. But here's where it gets complex. Some of you didn't just learn to be quiet. You learned to be perfect first, and then quiet when perfection wasn't enough. Your parents praised achievement but not existence. You got attention for straight A's, for winning the spelling bee, for being the good one who never caused problems. You became excellent at reading the room, at anticipating needs, at morphing yourself into whatever shape would earn you a moment of recognition. And here's what's fascinating. You probably became very good at this. Exceptional, even. You developed a kind of hypervigilance, an ability to scan faces and voices for micro-expressions of approval or disappointment. Psychologists call this hypermentalizing, the constant, exhausting work of tracking other people's emotional states while suppressing your own. But the cruel mathematics of this exchange is that every performance requires an intermission. Every moment of being on demanded hours of being off. You didn't become an introvert because you preferred solitude. You became one because performing connection was so exhausting that isolation became your only recovery. The truth is, you were never actually connecting. You were managing. And management, my friend, is not intimacy. The architecture of control. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. Emotional unavailability masquerading as respect for independence. Some of your parents were there physically but absent emotionally. They provided food, shelter, education. They weren't abusive in any obvious way. But when you came to them with fear, with confusion, with the ordinary chaos of being human, they offered solutions instead of presence. Don't cry, it's not that bad. You are fine, stop being dramatic. Figure it out yourself, you are smart enough. Here's what's really happening in those moments. Your parents are teaching you that emotions are problems to be solved, not experiences to be felt. They are teaching you that vulnerability is weakness. That needing someone is a failure of self-sufficiency. And so you stopped needing. Or more accurately, you learned to appear like you didn't need. You became the friend everyone calls in a crisis but who never has crisis of their own. The partner who's supportive but never asks for support. The person who listens beautifully but never quite lets anyone listen back. This isn't introversion. This is what psychologists call dismissive avoidant attachment, a learned strategy where you protect yourself from the pain of unmet needs by pretending you don't have needs at all. Silence isn't your preference. Silence is your control. The weight of witnessing. And this is where it gets even more painful. Some of you weren't just ignored. You were parentified. You became the emotional support system for the people who were supposed to support you. You remember being 7, 8, 9 years old and already knowing things children shouldn't know. That your mother was unhappy in her marriage. That your father was drinking too much. That money was tight and tension was high, and somehow, impossibly, you became responsible for managing everyone else's feelings. You learned to be small because someone needed you to not take up space they couldn't spare. You learned to be quiet because your emotions were one more thing a struggling parent couldn't handle. You learned to be independent because dependence felt like cruelty, asking drowning people to save you too. Psychologist Elise Miller calls this the drama of the gifted child. Children who develop premature emotional intelligence not as a gift but as a survival mechanism. You became perceptive, intuitive, deeply empathetic. And you learned that those gifts were meant to be given, never received. So yes, you retreat. You withdraw. You prefer small gatherings or none at all. But here's the thing. You are not recharging in solitude. You are collapsing. The echo chamber of shame. Let's talk about the voice in your head. You know the one. The one that tells you are boring when you speak. That your stories aren't interesting. That people are just being polite when they engage with you. That you should probably leave the party now before people realize you are not fun enough, smart enough, valuable enough. That voice didn't come from nowhere. It came from the parent who interrupted your stories to tell their own. The one who compared you unfavorably to your siblings, your cousins, the neighbor's kid who was doing so much better. The one who responded to your excitement with criticism disguised as concern. That's great, but have you thought about? I'm happy for you, but don't get your hopes up too high. Neuroscientist Dr. Dan Siegel explains that we develop our internal narrative, the story we tell ourselves about who we are, primarily through the narratives others tell about us. When those early narratives are laced with criticism, conditional acceptance, or emotional absence, we internalize a shame-based identity. And shame has a very specific behavioral signature: hiding. You are not an introvert who enjoys rich inner worlds. You are someone who learned that the outer world reflects back something painful, so you stay inside where the mirrors can't reach you. The confusion of conditional love. But here's what makes this so confusing, so hard to untangle. Your parents probably loved you. They probably did their best. They probably had reasons for their distance, their criticism, their emotional unavailability. Maybe they were raised the same way. Maybe they were drowning in their own unprocessed trauma. Maybe they genuinely believed they were teaching you resilience, independence, strength. And maybe, on some level, they were. But the truth is, you can understand why someone hurt you and still acknowledge that they hurt you. You can have compassion for their limitations while grieving what you needed and didn't receive. This is where many people get stuck. They dismiss their own experience because the harm wasn't intentional. But unintentional harm is still harm. Benign neglect is still neglect. And the child you were deserved more than good intentions. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be held, not just physically, but emotionally. To learn that your presence was a gift, not a burden. That your needs were valid, not excessive. That your emotions were data, not drama. The long shadow. Let me show you how this plays out in your adult life. You are at dinner with friends. Someone asks you a question about yourself, and before you can even formulate an answer, that familiar tightness grips your chest. You deflect. You turn the conversation back to them. You crack a joke. You change the subject. Later, alone, you feel ashamed. Why can't you just be normal? Why is this so hard? Or you meet someone who seems genuinely interested in you. They text consistently. They ask follow-up questions. They remember things you've said. And instead of feeling happy, you feel suspicious, anxious, waiting for the moment they realize you are not worth this much attention. Or you accomplish something significant, a promotion, a creative project, a personal milestone, and your first instinct isn't to celebrate but to minimize. It's not that big a deal. Anyone could have done it. I just got lucky. This is the long shadow of how you were parented. Not your introversion, your self-protection, your preemptive rejection, your inability to believe that you are worth sustained attention. And the most heartbreaking part? You've become the parent to yourself that you once needed. The one who dismisses your needs, who tells you to toughen up, who can't sit with your vulnerability without rushing to fix it or minimize it or make it go away. The distinction that matters. Here's what I need you to understand. There is nothing wrong with being an introvert. True introversion, the kind rooted in temperament rather than trauma, is a beautiful way of being in the world. True introverts find genuine restoration in solitude. They have rich inner lives not because outer lives feel dangerous, but because inner exploration brings them joy. They can connect deeply when they choose to. They simply need less of it than others do. But if your introversion feels like armor, if it's accompanied by intense social anxiety, if you crave connection but fear it simultaneously, if you have to recover from social situations like you are recovering from battle, that's not temperament. That's adaptation. That's your nervous system, shaped by years of learning that connection comes with conditions, that visibility comes with vulnerability, that being seen means being evaluated and found wanting. The psychology behind this is called fearful avoidant attachment, the push and pull of wanting intimacy while being terrified of it. It's one of the most painful attachment patterns because you are constantly at war with yourself. You are lonely in company and anxious in solitude. Nothing quite feels right because your internal working model of relationships is fundamentally contradictory. People are necessary and dangerous, connection is vital and threatening. The body keeps the score. Your introversion isn't just in your mind. It's in your body. Notice what happens when you are about to enter a social situation. Your heart rate increases. Your breath becomes shallow. Your shoulders rise toward your ears. Your stomach tightens. Maybe you start sweating or feeling dizzy or desperately needing to use the bathroom. This isn't just nervousness. This is your autonomic nervous system activating a threat response. Psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk, in his groundbreaking work on trauma, explains that our bodies hold memory in ways our conscious minds don't. When you were young and your emotional expression was met with dismissal, anger, or abandonment, your nervous system recorded that as danger. And now, decades later, that same system fires up whenever you are in situations that echo that original threat, being visible, being expressive, taking up space. Your body is trying to protect you from a danger that no longer exists. But it doesn't know that. To your nervous system, vulnerability still equals risk. This is why cognitive strategies alone, telling yourself, it's fine, these people are nice, there's nothing to worry about, often don't work. Because this isn't a thinking problem. It's a nervous system problem. It's stored in the preverbal, preconscious parts of your brain that developed before you could even speak. The gift and the curse. And maybe that's the real complexity here. What your parents gave you, whether through neglect or criticism or emotional unavailability, isn't purely negative. You did develop gifts, real ones. You are probably incredibly observant. You notice things other people miss, the slight change in someone's tone, the tension in a room, the unspoken dynamics in group settings. You are likely deeply empathetic, able to understand and hold space for others in ways that feel almost mystical. You might be creative in ways that surprise people. Because all that time alone, all that rich inner life you developed when the outer world felt too sharp, that wasn't wasted. You built entire universes in your mind. You learned to be your own companion. You developed depth that people who have never had to retreat can't access. But here's the truth. You deserve to develop those gifts by choice, not by necessity. You deserve to be observant because you were curious, not because you had to monitor for danger. You deserve to be empathetic because you valued connection, not because your survival depended on managing other people's emotions. The gifts are real, and you paid too much for them. The work of unlearning. So what do you do with this understanding? How do you separate trauma response from temperament? How do you unlearn patterns that have been grooved into your nervous system since before you could remember? Here's what I want you to know. This work isn't about becoming an extrovert. It's not about forcing yourself to be someone you are not. It's about reclaiming choice. It's about noticing when you are withdrawing from self-protection versus genuine need. It's about learning to distinguish between, I need solitude to recharge, and, I need solitude because I'm afraid. It starts with curiosity instead of judgment. The next time you feel that pull to leave a social situation, to deflect a personal question, to minimize your own needs, pause. Not to shame yourself. Just to notice. To ask, is this what I want, or is this what I learned to want? Therapy helps. Particularly approaches that work with the body and nervous system, somatic experiencing, EMDR, internal family systems. Because again, this isn't just a mental pattern. It's embodied. Safe relationships help. Finding people who can tolerate your vulnerability without rushing to fix it or minimize it. People who understand that sometimes you need silence without it meaning rejection. People who know the difference between giving you space and abandoning you. And self-compassion helps. Recognizing that you developed these patterns for good reason. That the child you were did what they needed to do to survive. That there's no shame in having adapted to challenging circumstances. The invitation. But ultimately, here's the invitation. To mourn what you didn't receive while honoring what you became. To acknowledge that you were shaped by absence while recognizing you are not defined by it. You are not broken. You are not defective. You are not too much or not enough. You are someone who learned to make themselves small so others could feel big. Someone who learned to silence their voice so others could feel heard. Someone who learned that safety meant invisibility. And now you have a choice that your younger self didn't have. You can choose to be seen anyway. Not all at once. Not in ways that feel violent to your system. But gradually. Incrementally. With people who have earned the right to see you. In moments when your nervous system feels regulated enough to risk it. You can practice speaking when you are used to silence. You can practice asking for what you need when you are used to self-sufficiency. You can practice staying when you are used to leaving. You can practice believing that your presence is a gift, not a burden. So are you really an introvert? Maybe. Probably some part of you is genuinely wired that way, and that's beautiful. Cherish it. Honor it. Let it guide you toward the kind of life that feels authentic. But if your introversion feels more like exile than homecoming, more like fear than preference, more like protection than peace, then maybe it's time to ask, what would it feel like to choose connection not despite your fears, but with them? What would it feel like to be vulnerable in a world that finally feels safe enough? Your parents did what they could with what they had. They shaped you in ways they probably didn't intend. They gave you patterns that once kept you safe but now keep you small. But you are not small. You never were. You were just taught to fold yourself into spaces that couldn't hold all of you. It's time to unfold. Not because you are broken, but because you are finally safe enough to take up the space you always deserved. That little kid who burst into the room with excitement about ants and cities and magnificent discoveries? They are still in there. Still curious. Still full of wonder. Still believing, against all evidence, that the world might want to hear what they have to say. Maybe it's time to let them speak.